There is a man alive right now whose name you will never learn. In the year 1202, a scholar from Andalusia walked into Makkah, sat in the shadow of the Kaaba, and wrote something that would divide the Muslim world for 800 years. He described a hidden order of human beings, 7 ranks of them, scattered across the earth, unknown to their own neighbors, each assigned a duty they never asked for. He claimed one of them holds a position so heavy that when he dies, the appointment passes the same night. Scholars burned his books over this. Other scholars defended him with their reputations. But the question nobody could bury is the one waiting for you in the next sentence. To understand the claim, you have to understand the world that produced the man. Murcia, in the south of the Iberian Peninsula. The year 1165 by the Christian calendar, 560 after the Hijrah. Al-Andalus is a civilization in its golden twilight, and everyone living in it can feel the temperature dropping. The libraries are still full. The courtyards still echo with the sound of water and recitation, but the borders are shrinking year by year, and the men who run the cities know it, even if they do not say it aloud. Into this world, a boy is born to a family of standing. His father serves in the circles of power. The boy grows up with fine clothes, horses, hunting, the easy confidence of a young man whose future is already arranged. His name is Muhammad ibn Ali ibn Muhammad ibn al-Arabi. History will simply call him Ibn Arabi. And by every visible measure, he is not on a path toward asceticism, seclusion, or the unseen. He is on a path toward a comfortable administrative post and a comfortable life. Then something happens to him in Seville that he never fully explains. He falls ill, seriously ill, and during that illness, or at the edge of it in the place where the body loosens its grip on the soul, he experiences something that empties him out and refills him with something else. When he recovers, the young nobleman is gone. He gives away what he owns. He withdraws into seclusion. He begins spending his nights in graveyards and his days in the company of people his social class would have crossed the street to avoid. Old women who could not read, laborers, the anonymous poor who prayed in the back rows. His father does not know what to do with him, so his father does what a worried, well-connected father does. He arranges a meeting with the most famous intellect in the Muslim West, Abu al-Walid ibn Rushd, the man Europe would later call Averroes, the judge of Cordoba, the commentator on Aristotle, the mind whose books would eventually reshape the universities of Paris and Padua. A titan of rational philosophy at the height of his powers, and Ibn Arabi, by his own account, was a beardless boy when he walked into that room. He tells the story himself decades later in the pages of his greatest work. He says, Ibn Rushd rose to greet him, embraced him, and then asked him a single question, a question designed to test whether the mystic's path and the philosopher's path arrive at the same destination. The boy answered with one word, yes, and Ibn Rushd's face changed color. Then the boy said, no. And what happened next in that room became one of the most quoted encounters in Islamic intellectual history. The moment the age of pure rationalism looked across a room at the age of unveiling, and neither one could fully explain the other. Hold that image, because it is the seed of everything that follows. Years later, Ibn Rushd would die in Marrakesh, and his body would be carried back to Cordoba for burial. Ibn Arabi says he was present, and he describes the sight that never left him. The coffin of the great philosopher loaded onto one side of a beast of burden, his written works, his life's output, his volumes of commentary and argument stacked as a counterweight on the other side, the man on one side, the books on the other, perfectly balanced. And a young poet standing nearby said something that Ibn Arabi carried for the rest of his life. This is the master, and these are his works. If only I knew whether his hopes were fulfilled. Sit with that scene for a moment. Everything a brilliant human being produced in 70 years of labor, weighed on a scale against the weight of his own corpse. And the only question that mattered at the graveside was not how many books, not how many students, not how many titles. The only question was, did Allah accept him? The Qur'an frames the same weighing with terrifying economy. On that day, whoever is drawn away from the fire and admitted to the garden has succeeded. And the life of this world is nothing but the enjoyment of delusion. The enjoyment of delusion, mata al-gurur, the pleasure of being fooled. Ibn Arabi was never the same after that funeral. He began to travel, and he did not stop for the rest of his life. North Africa, Tunis, Fez, then east, across the Mediterranean world, through cities that no longer exist under the names he knew. And in the year 598 after the Hijrah, 1202 in the common calendar, he arrived in Makkah. Picture the city as he found it. Not the Makkah of steel towers and marble galleries and air conditioning, a stone town in a bowl of black volcanic hills, baking under a sun that gives no mercy, the sanctuary at its center wrapped in cloth, the pilgrims circling in a slow human river that has not stopped since Ibrahim raised the foundations. He arrived as a foreigner from the far western edge of the Muslim world. He had crossed an entire civilization to get there. And in Makkah, something opened. He began to write, not a book, a world. Al-Futuhat al-Makkiyah, the Makkan openings or the Makkan revelations, a work so vast that in modern printings it runs to thousands upon thousands of pages across dozens of volumes. There are people who have spent entire academic careers on a single chapter of it. Inside that immensity, buried among discussions of divine names and cosmology and the inner meanings of ritual, sits the passage that brought you to this video. Ibn Arabi describes a structure, not a political structure, not a scholarly one, something underneath both. He describes an invisible hierarchy of living human beings, men and women walking the earth in his own time, organized into ranks, each rank holding a fixed number, each number holding a specific responsibility for the stability of the created world. At the top, a single individual. Below him, 2. Below them, 4. Below them, 7. Below them, 12. And further tiers below that. He calls them by names that would echo through Muslim spirituality for centuries. Al-Qutb, Al-Awtad, Al-Abdal, Al-Nuqaba, Al-Nujaba, the pole, the pegs, the substitutes, the chiefs, the nobles. And here is the detail that stops the heart. He insists that most of them do not know each other. Some of them, he says, do not even know their own rank. They are ordinary in appearance, unremarkable in status, invisible in the marketplace. The woman selling dates, the man sweeping the courtyard, the traveler nobody looked at twice. He claimed the world is held in place by people the world has never heard of. Now, before we open the ranks one by one, understand what is at stake in this claim, because it is not a small thing, and it was never treated as a small thing. If Ibn Arabi is describing something real, then the entire visible order of human importance is upside down, and the people we honor are not the people Allah honors. If he is describing something he constructed, then one of the most influential Muslims who ever lived built a cosmology on a foundation that revelation did not lay. Muslim scholarship has never fully agreed on which of those two sentences is true. Some of the greatest minds in our history lined up on opposite sides of it, and the argument grew violent enough that in certain cities his books were publicly burned, while in other cities defending him was considered a mark of orthodoxy. We are going to walk straight into the middle of it. But first, you deserve to hear the claim in full, the 7 ranks, and the specific duties Ibn Arabi assigned to each one. Because rank number 4 carries a burden so strange that when you understand what he says they do, you will understand exactly why scholars could not let this go. Ibn Arabi did not present this as speculation. That is the first thing you must grasp. He presented it as description, the way a geographer describes a coastline he has walked. He wrote of these people the way a man writes about neighbors, sometimes claiming to have met them, sometimes claiming to have sat with them, sometimes noting that a particular one had died and been replaced. And he insisted that the numbers never change, only the occupants. Here is the structure as he and the tradition that followed him described it. At the summit stands one man, Al-Qutb, the pole. The word itself is drawn from the physical world. A qutb is the pivot of a millstone, the fixed axis around which the entire heavy wheel turns. It is also the pole star, the one point in the northern sky that does not move while every other light circles it through the night. That is the image. Everything spins. One thing holds still. Ibn Arabi describes the Qutb as the single human being in each age who occupies the innermost station of nearness, the heart upon which the divine mercy descends before it is distributed outward through creation. He is also called Al-Ghath, the Sukur, the one appealed to in distress. And here is where the discomfort begins for many Muslims, and rightly so, because that word, and what later popular culture did with it, is precisely where the danger lives. We will come back to that. Do not let go of it. Beneath the Qutb, Ibn Arabi places two, Al-Imaman, the two Imams. One stands to his right, one to his left. One is oriented toward the unseen world, one toward the visible. And when the Qutb dies, according to this schema, one of these two steps into his place before the next dawn. The post is never empty, not for a single night, because the world cannot survive an hour without its axis. Beneath the two, he places four. Al-Awtad, the pegs. Again, the metaphor comes from the desert floor. An Awtad is a tent stake, the thing hammered into the ground that keeps the canvas from lifting away in the wind. Ibn Arabi assigns these four to the four directions: east, west, north, south. He writes that each one is stationed at a corner of the earth, and through each one, Allah preserves that quarter of the world. The Qur'an itself uses this language for mountains, describing the earth as spread out and the mountains as pegs driven in to steady it. The tradition took that image and applied it to human beings, four people hammered into the corners of the world, holding the tent down. Beneath the four, seven Al-Abdal, the substitutes, and this is the rank with the strangest duty of all. The name comes from badal, meaning replacement or exchange. Two explanations circulate. The first is that when one of them dies, another is immediately substituted, so the number 7 is never broken. The second explanation is far more unsettling. Some of the early transmitters said the Abdal are called substitutes because when one of them must be present in a place, he leaves a substitute of himself behind in the place he departed, a body left in the room while the man is somewhere else entirely. Ibn Arabi connected these 7 to the 7 regions of the earth, and further to 7 great prophets, whose spiritual reality each of them is said to inherit and reflect. Now hold on, because we have just crossed a line, and I want you to notice that we crossed it. We have gone from a metaphor about tent pegs to a claim that specific living men mirror the inner realities of prophets and can leave duplicates of themselves behind. Keep that in your chest. It is going to matter enormously in a few minutes. Beneath the 712 Al-Nuqaba, the chiefs or the overseers, Ibn Arabi links these 12 to the 12 months and to the 12 signs of the zodiac, and he assigns them a specific and remarkable function. He says they are given insight into the hidden condition of souls, that they can perceive the diseases of the heart in a person the way a physician perceives an illness in a body. He says they read what is buried and that the sciences of the inward are laid open to them. Beneath the 12, 8. Al-Nujaba, the nobles. Their assignment in his account is one of carrying. He describes them as the ones who bear the burdens of ordinary people. who take on, in the unseen, the weight of the general population, so that the masses can go about their lives without being crushed by what accumulates above them. The word he uses in this context is one of intercession and bearing. They shoulder what others cannot see is being shouldered. And beneath all of these, the widest tier, different masters counted them differently, 300 or 40 or an indeterminate multitude. The righteous ones, the good ones, sometimes called the akhyar, the broad base of the pyramid. Ordinary believers of exceptional sincerity, unnamed, uncounted by anyone but their Lord. 7 tiers, 1, 2, 4, 7, 12, 8, and the multitude. And now the duties, gathered together, because this is what the title promised you and I will not cheat you out of it. According to this framework, the Qutb receives and distributes. The 2 imams stabilize and stand ready to replace. The 4 pegs anchor the 4 quarters of the earth. The 7 substitutes travel and are exchanged region by region. The 12 chiefs diagnose the hidden sicknesses of souls. The 8 nobles carry the unseen weight of the common people. And the multitude below sustains the world through worship nobody witnesses. Ibn Arabi's most striking assertion is not any single duty. It is the overall shape. He is saying that history has a secret staff, that the events you read about, the collapse of dynasties, the survival of communities, the mercy that arrives at the last possible moment, are connected to the presence of specific, unremarkable human beings whose names never entered any chronicle. And he is saying something even sharper than that. He is saying that some of these people would be astonished to learn they hold a rank at all. Now, take a breath, because we are about to turn the ship. Everything you have just heard is presented in the sources as a description of reality, and it has moved millions of Muslim hearts for 8 centuries. It has inspired poetry in Persian, Turkish, Urdu, Malay, Hausa, and Swahili. It shaped the spiritual imagination of West Africa and Southeast Asia and Ottoman Anatolia. But there is a question that has been standing at the back of the room this entire time, with its hand raised, and it will not be ignored any longer. Where did he get it? Not who inspired him, not which teacher taught him. Where in the Book of Allah, and where in the confirmed speech of the Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings be upon him, is this structure established? Because if this came down from revelation, it is a truth we must accept, whether it comforts us or terrifies us. And if it did not, then something else is going on. And we have an obligation to name it honestly, no matter how beautiful the poetry is. The scholars of Islam asked that exact question. They asked it with the full apparatus of hadith criticism, the most rigorous system for verifying transmitted reports ever developed by any civilization before the modern era. They pulled the narrations apart, chain by chain, narrator by narrator, generation by generation, and what they found split the ummah down the middle. Everything rests on one narration. It is short. You have probably heard it quoted on a minbar or a live stream without a single word about where it comes from. The Abdal are in Sham. They are 40 men. Whenever one of them dies, Allah substitutes another in his place. By them rain is sent, by them victory is granted, and by them punishment is turned away from the people. Read it again and feel how heavy it is. Rain, victory, the withholding of punishment. 3 of the largest levers in human survival, attributed to 40 anonymous men in Greater Syria. That narration, and a cluster of others resembling it, is the entire textual foundation of the hierarchy. Everything else is built on top of it. So the muhaddithun, the specialists in hadith authentication, did what they do. They traced it, and here is what they found. Most versions do not go back to the Prophet at all. They stop at Ali ibn Abi Talib, may Allah be pleased with him, as his own statement. In the technical language of the science, that makes them mawquf, halted at a companion, not marfu, not raised to the Prophet. Where the chains do claim to reach the Prophet, they pass through narrators the critics identified as unknown or weak or worse. Ibn al-Jawzi, the great Hanbali scholar of Baghdad, who died in 597 after the Hijrah, placed reports of this type in his collection of fabricated narrations. Ibn Taymiyyah, who died in 728, examined the material and concluded that the hadith on this matter is weak, and that the wording is not from the speech of the Prophet. And notice what Ibn Taymiyyah did not say. He did not deny that Allah has beloved servants. He did not deny that Allah preserves communities through righteous people. He affirmed the Awliya explicitly, and he wrote an entire treatise distinguishing the friends of the most merciful from the friends of Shaitan. What he rejected was the chart, the fixed numbers, the org structure of the unseen. In the modern era, Sheikh Al-Albani reviewed the same body of narrations and graded the well-known version of fabrication, placing it in his compilation of weak and forged reports. That is one side. Now hear the other side, because it is not weak and it is not populated by fools. Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar al-Haytami defended the reality of the Abdal. Al-Sakhawi engaged the material, and Imam Jalal al-Din al-Suyuti, one of the most prolific and widely respected scholars in the entire history of Islam, a man who wrote on tafsir, hadith, law, and language with authority in every field, went further than anyone. Suyuti wrote a dedicated treatise on precisely this question. Its title translates roughly as "The Report Indicating the Existence of the Pole, the Pegs, the Nobles, and the Substitutes." His argument was technical and it was serious. He acknowledged the individual chains are weak, but he invoked a recognized principle of hadith science, that a large number of independently weak reports, transmitted through separate routes that could not plausibly have colluded, can collectively rise to a level of strength that a single weak report can never reach. Multiple weak threads, braided, become a rope. So you have Ibn al-Jawzi and Ibn Taymiyyah and Al-Albani on one side. You have Suyuti and Ibn Hajar al-Haytami, and the overwhelming weight of the Sufi tradition on the other. And you have scholars in between who accepted the general concept and rejected the specific numbers. Here is the honest verdict, and I am going to give it to you straight instead of flattering whichever camp you already belong to. The 7-tier hierarchy with its exact numbers, 1 pole, 2 imams, 4 pegs, 7 substitutes, 12 chiefs, 8 nobles, is not established by the Qur'an, and it is not established by any narration that meets the standard of Sahih al-Bukhari or Sahih Muslim. It is a framework built from disputed reports, from the statements of early Sufi masters, and from what Ibn Arabi himself claimed to have witnessed through unveiling. That does not make Ibn Arabi a liar. It does not make the men who followed him fools, and it does not settle the question of whether Allah preserves the world through hidden servants, because, and now we arrive at the turn, that question has an answer, and the answer does not come from Ibn Arabi. It comes from a source no Muslim on earth disputes, because while scholars were fighting over the 40 of Sham, the actual doctrine of Wilayah was sitting in plain sight, in the most rigorously verified texts we possess, saying something more astonishing than any hierarchy. Open the Qur'an, Surah Yunus. Unquestionably, for the Awliya of Allah there shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve, those who believed and were conscious of Allah. For them are glad tidings in the life of this world and in the hereafter. There is no changing the words of Allah. That is the supreme triumph. Stop there. Allah introduces his friends, and then in the very next breath he defines them. He does not leave it to speculation. He does not leave it to unveiling. He does not leave it to a chart. 2 conditions: they believed and they were conscious of him. Iman and taqwa. That is the entire entry requirement stated by Allah about his own closest servants, in a verse recited in every corner of the earth. No number, No tier, no geography, no secret roster. And now the second text, and this one should make your skin move. In Sahih al-Bukhari, the Prophet transmitted from his Lord, and there is no dispute about this hadith, none. It is among the most celebrated narrations in Islam. Allah said, "Whoever shows enmity to a friend of mine, I have declared war upon him, and my servant draws not near to me with anything more beloved to me than what I have made obligatory upon him. And my servant continues to draw near to me with voluntary works until I love him. And when I love him, I am his hearing with which he hears, and his sight with which he sees, and his hand with which he strikes, and his foot with which he walks. If he asks me, I will surely give him. And if he seeks refuge in me, I will surely grant him refuge. I have declared war upon him." The sovereign of the heavens and the earth, who needs nothing from anyone, describes himself as taking the field against a man who harmed an unnamed servant. And then look at the mechanism. Look at how a person becomes that servant. It is not initiation. It is not a lineage. It is not a rank conferred in a vision. Step 1, the obligatory, the fard, the 5 prayers. Nothing is more beloved to Allah than the things He commanded. Not extra dhikr, not night vigils, not seclusion in caves. The prayer you attempted to delay is the single most beloved act available to you. Step 2, the voluntary, continued and continued and continued. Until, and here the hadith says the word that should end every argument, until I love him. Hatta uhibba. The entire ladder to Wilayah is published, publicly. In the most widely read hadith collection on earth, there is no hidden door. And when the love is granted, the description of what follows is not that the servant becomes divine, and not that he acquires cosmic administrative powers. It is that his faculties come under divine guidance. His hearing no longer chases what harms him. His sight no longer hunts what corrupts him. His hand no longer reaches for what is forbidden. The reward for nearness is protection from yourself. So here is the divine decree that overturns the entire drama. Allah did not hide the path to his friendship. He hid his friends. And once you understand that distinction, that the road is public and the travelers are anonymous, everything changes, including how you look at the person sitting beside you in the masjid. Because the Messenger of Allah told us exactly what these people look like. And it is not what Ibn Arabi's readers went looking for. Let us finish Ibn Arabi's story first, because it does not end gently. He kept traveling east, Baghdad, Anatolia, Aleppo. He wrote continuously, in a torrent that has few equals in any language. Hundreds of works attributed to him, some of them enormous. He finally settled in Damascus, and in the year 638 after the Hijrah, 1240 of the Common Era, he died there. They buried him on the slope of Mount Qasiyun, in the quarter called Salihiyah, where his tomb still stands today. And then the war over him began. It lasted centuries. Al-Biqai, a scholar of Egypt, wrote a full treatise declaring him outside the fold of Islam. Ibn Khaldun, the historian whose Muqaddimah remains one of the most brilliant works of social analysis ever written, condemned his ideas and reportedly supported the destruction of his books. Copies were burned. Fatwas were issued in both directions. In some Ottoman decades, defending him was orthodoxy. In others, teaching him could destroy a career. And on the other side, Suyuti, the same Suyuti, wrote a treatise defending him by name. Al-Dahabi, the great biographer, wrote about him with a kind of visible discomfort, unwilling to fully condemn and unwilling to fully endorse. Here is what I want you to take from that. And it is not a verdict on Ibn Arabi's soul, because his soul is not our business, and Allah is the judge of it. Here is what I want you to take. He built a cathedral of the unseen, and the tradition could never agree on whether it was a place of worship or a hall of mirrors. Now let us talk about what happened downstream. because the consequences of this doctrine did not stay in the scholarly journals. They landed in villages. When a community becomes convinced that a secret hierarchy governs the world, a predictable disease follows. People begin hunting for the hierarchy. They begin looking for the Qutb. They begin asking who the Gauth of this age is. They begin attaching themselves to men who are happy to be mistaken for one. And a title that was supposed to describe the most hidden people alive becomes the most sought-after credential in the room. Do you see the horror of the inversion? A doctrine whose entire premise is anonymity became, in the hands of ordinary human beings, a marketplace of spiritual celebrity. Men began to be called upon in distress. Appeals were addressed to the Gauth, and that is the precise place where love of the righteous, which is a beautiful thing, can slide into something the Qur'an came to abolish. Because the Qur'an is not ambiguous on this. Say, He is Allah, one, Allah, the eternal refuge. And in the opening chapter that every Muslim recites at least 17 times a day, You alone we worship, and You alone we ask for help. Iyyaka nasta'in, You alone, not the pole, not the peg, not the substitute. And now watch how the authentic tradition, the Sahih material, the reports nobody disputes, handles the exact same subject. Because it says something more radical than Ibn Arabi, and it says it without any chart at all. Sahih Muslim. The Prophet said, Verily Allah loves the servant who is pious, free of need and hidden. Al-Taqi, Al-Ghani, Al-Khafi. Hidden, Khafi. The word means obscure, unnoticed, the one nobody points at. The Messenger of Allah did not say Allah tolerates such a person. He said Allah loves him, and He named the obscurity as part of what is loved. Then take this also from the Sahih collections. The Prophet said, Many a person with disheveled hair and covered in dust turned away at doors. If he were to swear an oath by Allah, Allah would fulfill it. Read that slowly. A man so socially insignificant that doors close in his face, dusty, unkempt, nobody's guest, nobody's honored elder. And if that man raises his hands and swears something upon Allah, Allah does not let the oath fall. And in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, the Prophet said, Shall I not tell you about the people of paradise? Every weak and humble person who, if he swore an oath by Allah, Allah would fulfill it. And shall I not tell you about the people of the fire? Every harsh, greedy, arrogant one. The criterion is stated, it is not a rank, it is a posture. Now let me give you the story that seals it, because it is the closest thing in the authentic record to what Ibn Arabi was reaching for, and it is far more devastating than any hierarchy. In Sahih Muslim, Umar ibn al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, the commander of the believers, the man whose empire stretched from Egypt to Persia, the man whose footsteps Shaitan avoided, used to stand before the delegations arriving from Yemen and ask them a question. Every year, delegation after delegation, Is there among you a man called Uwais? He was searching. The ruler of the Muslim world was conducting a search. Because the Prophet had described the man in advance, a man from Yemen, from the tribe of Murad, from Qaran, a man who had been afflicted with a skin condition and was cured of it except for a small patch, a man who had a mother and treated her with devotion. And then the Prophet said the sentence that shakes everything. If he swears by Allah, Allah fulfills it. If you are able to have him ask forgiveness for you, then do so. Now hold the picture in your mind. Uwais al-Qarani never met the Prophet. He became Muslim in the Prophet's lifetime, but never traveled to see him because his mother needed him, and he stayed. He held no office. He commanded no army. He narrated no famous chain. Sahih Muslim reports that among the people of Kufa, he was a man of no standing whatsoever, the sort of person others looked past. And Umar ibn al-Khattab, who could have commanded any scholar in the empire to attend him, stood in the road year after year, asking for him by name. When he finally found him, Umar asked him to make istighfar for him. Understand what that means. The second caliph of Islam, whose merits are recorded in the most authentic books we own, asked an unknown Yemeni herdsman to seek Allah's forgiveness on his behalf. That is the true doctrine of the hidden saints. And it is in Sahih Muslim. There is no chart, there is no zodiac, there are no four corners of the earth. There is only this, a nobody with a mother to care for, whose oath moves the sky. And there is one more thing in the record, quieter and even harder to shake. A woman used to sweep the Prophet's masjid, just that. She cleaned the floor. She died, and the companions did not consider it significant enough to disturb the Prophet with the news, so they buried her at night without telling him. When he learned of it, he asked why they had not informed him, and then he went out to her grave, and he prayed over her. The best of creation, peace and blessings be upon him, stood at the grave of a cleaner. So the question that should be burning in you now is not who is the Qutb of this age. The question is, what if you have already met one of them and treated them as furniture? Let me tell you what all of this finally means, because 800 years of argument compress into something you can carry out of this video and use tonight. Ibn Arabi's hierarchy is contested, and it is not proven by revelation, but the intuition underneath it, that the world is held together by people nobody photographs, that intuition is not merely permitted in Islam. It is the explicit teaching of the Prophet, transmitted through the most authenticated channels we possess. The Qur'an says, "And your Lord would never destroy the towns unjustly while their people were reformers." Muslihun, those who repair things. Communities are not preserved by their monuments. They are preserved by the presence of people who quietly fix what others break. And these people are not exotic. That is the great misdirection of the entire subject. The tradition points again and again at the same unglamorous figures. The one who cared for a parent when it cost him everything. The one nobody invited. The one who cleaned the floor. The one turned away at doors. So here is what I want to leave you with, not 7 ranks, 7 duties. And unlike the hierarchy, every single one of these is available to you before you go to sleep tonight, and every single one is grounded in text nobody disputes. The first duty is to guard the obligatory. Nothing you invent will ever be more beloved to Allah than what He already asked of you. The hadith of Bukhari is explicit. My servant draws not near to me with anything more beloved to me than what I have made obligatory upon him. Before you look for a secret, pray the prayer on time. The second duty is to build in the dark. The voluntary acts, done where no one counts them. The 2 rak'ahs nobody knows about. The charity that leaves no receipt. Because the hadith says, the servant continues drawing near through the voluntary until Allah loves him. And continues is the operative word, not attempts once, continues. The third duty is to disappear. Allah loves the servant who is pious, self-sufficient and hidden. In an age that is engineered to make you perform your own goodness for an audience, choosing obscurity is not passivity. It is one of the hardest acts of worship available to a modern human being. The fourth duty is to serve the person who cannot repay you, the parent whose care has become inconvenient, the elderly neighbor, the one whose gratitude will never be public. Uwais al-Qarani missed the Prophet himself for this, and Allah compensated him with an oath the heavens do not refuse. The fifth duty is to stop measuring people by what the world measures. The Prophet described the people of paradise as the weak and lowly whom others look past. If your assessment of who matters lines up neatly with society's assessment, your assessment is broken. The sixth duty is to fear harming a believer. I have declared war upon him. You do not know who among the people around you Allah has taken as a friend. The cashier, the cleaner, the quiet man in the last row. Treat every one of them as though they might be the one whose oath Allah does not refuse, because you have no way of knowing that they are not. And the seventh duty is to want none of this for the status of it. The moment you want to be counted among the hidden ones, you have already stepped out of the ranks. That is the trap that swallowed centuries of seekers, and it will swallow you too if you let it. Now let me close the loop I opened at the very beginning. I said, there is a man alive right now whose name you will never learn. I did not say he is a Qutb. I did not say he is one of 40. I do not know the numbers, and neither does anyone reading you a chart on the internet. But I will say this with complete confidence, on the authority of Surah Yunus and Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, and not on the authority of any man's vision. Somewhere on this earth right now, there is a servant of Allah whom Allah loves. He is not famous. He may be poor. He may be sick. He may be caring for someone who no longer recognizes him. He has no followers, no platform, no title, and no idea that anyone is talking about him. And if he raised his hands tonight and swore something upon his Lord would honor it. That is not mysticism. That is hadith. Remember Ibn Rushd's funeral. The coffin on one side of the animal, the books on the other, perfectly balanced. All that brilliance weighed against all that flesh. And the only question at the graveside was whether Allah accepted him. That scale is waiting for you too. And on that day, nobody will ask what rank you held. Nobody will ask whose hand you took, whose lineage you claimed, or which hierarchy you believed in. You will be asked about your prayer. You will be asked about your parents. You will be asked about the people you had power over and how you used it. You will be asked about the wealth, where it came from and where it went. You will be asked about the body you were given and the years you were loaned. Allah says in His book, and let this be the last thing you hear, unquestionably for the friends of Allah there shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve. Those who believed and were conscious of Allah, no fear, no grief, not because they held a rank, because they believed and because they were careful with Him when nobody was looking. The door was never hidden, only the people who walked through it. So stop searching for them and go be one.